Hi, and thank you for tuning in tonight in a series of conversations with candidates for City Council of the City of Santa Cruz. And tonight my guest is Cynthia Mathews, who is currently the mayor and an incumbent candidate. Welcome.
True.
Yes, all of that's true. How many times have you run for office so far?
Well, for Santa Cruz City Council, this would be my 6th term. I'm running for my 6th term.
Okay, so you must love this job and also feel like you're not done yet. Is that fair to say?
I think that is fair to say. And the job changes, the times change, the issues change, but I find it very rewarding. Santa Cruz is a very engaged community. We have a lot of really wonderful resources. People care, people are willing to get involved, and that allows us to do really amazing things. And that's the part I find rewarding.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a really hard job. I mean, nobody runs with their eyes closed thinking it's going to be really walk in the park. So there's a lot of hard things about it. You're in a unique position to have the luxury of looking back that many terms. I'm curious what the things that you feel have really moved the dial on as far as the council, and what are some things that are just those intransigent issues that will not budge and that really need some kind of new thinking maybe?
Oh, I see several different aspects to that. I think the things that remain constant are a very strong environmental commitment in this community. That underlying commitment hasn't changed, but the issues evolve over time. Certainly, the views on growth, I think, have changed. Some people, if we go back several decades, even before I was elected to council, there was a very strong anti-growth feeling in this community. It manifested itself in a lot of ways. And I think over time, there is movement to think, well, we need to accommodate some amount of growth. We need to do it in a way that's smart, but we have our children grow up and want to live here, or we have very bright people graduate from UCSC. They want to live here and start companies here, become part of our professional workforce. And how do we accommodate that? So I've seen some movement in that, and certainly in the area of transportation as well. You certainly know there have been efforts in the past to improve transportation. Some of them have been successful, some of them not. So that's a hot issue on the budget, on the ballot this year. And I think we've seen a very unusual alignment, really, the transportation measure that's coming to the voters. And I know you'll have a separate program on this, so I won't take much time, but it's much more diverse than what's come to the voters in the past, and the coalition behind it is quite a bit more diverse as well.
Are you talking about Measure D?
Measure D,
And
yeah.
I would say, from what I understand, most of the city council candidates are for it, almost all. I haven't done a tally, but
well, I can tell you, the city council voted to endorse Measure D, and it was a 6-to-1 vote. And I believe in all the other public jurisdictions in the county, there was only one other no vote. So I would say the public entities overall are very supportive, from Scotts Valley to Watsonville. I think the issues that have changed the most recently, they've always been there, but they've changed the most, are the housing crunch. That you don't have to be a genius to figure that one. That's been an issue for us in a long time, and it's gone in waves. I will say that having been on the council several times, I've actually been through 6 down economic cycles. And so that's kind of sobering when you go through that. Don't let your dreams get too far ahead of you, and don't make your assumptions too rosy. So certainly we've had times when the housing market dipped and then went crazy, et cetera. But I think everyone would say we are in a world-class crazy state right now. And it's anxiety producing at every level.
Are you talking about housing in specific, or everything?
Housing,
Yeah,
right now.
So it's reached kind of a critical mass.
Whether it's, yeah.
I guess we're stopping.
Go ahead. Let me just fix your microphone. Okay.
Did I roll over it?
Edited.
Yep. There we go.
Okay. So you're speaking of the housing crisis that's struck us, where we're, I think, the third most expensive
And
market.
we've
in
been
the-
up in that exalted realm for a number of years, but the increases in rent, the increases in housing prices have been such a shock to the system just in the last year that I can't think of anyone who doesn't think of it as a crisis
Right.
at this point. And you talked about what's intractable. We are caught in the eddy of forces that are way beyond the city of Santa Cruz's control. And I think the challenge for us is, what can we do as a city of 60,000 people to make a dent
Right.
in this issue? And then the other issue that seems to have gotten to a more intense level of concern is one that I would say is a conjunction of homelessness, addiction, petty crime, mental illness, all those things. I think you talk to anyone, they say they're so interwoven, you can't do one and not the other. But the public, whether you talk about the business sector or public in general, people in their neighborhoods, people using our parks, that's reached a point that it really intrudes on their feeling of comfort in the community. It puts that clash of comfort level in internal conflict with people in terms of their compassion, wanting to do something meaningful. And so I think there again, that's a challenge for us. How do we try and deal with the human issues there in a way that's effective and still acknowledging our limits as a city? So in the last year, we really have made a movement to look for regional solutions, to look at the money we're spending and say, how can we spend that more effectively, get better results for the money we're spending?
So I imagine, you hear reports that the economy's improving, and you think that maybe it's improving for everyone. So does the way the budget is structured with sales taxes and other kinds of income sources for the city mean that you have somewhat more now at your disposal if indeed we are out of the recession, or at least further out of it than we were a few years ago?
Well, I am not an economist, but from what I'm seeing, yes, the economy in broad brush may be recovering, not dramatically, but recovering, but it's not being shared equally across the board. So as I'm sure you know, we do have a lot of lower wage jobs here in Santa Cruz. The tourism industry, restaurants are famous for that. So that's not being shared equally. And it's also not reflected in our revenue for the city. Our revenue is improving somewhat, but we do have labor agreements with our employees. They have increases. We have 4-year agreements with our employees. And so we have to keep growing just to stay even.
Right.
And that's a challenge for us.
So city employees too have to rent somewhere
Yeah,
as well,
yeah.
and so those housing costs are affecting your ability to recruit and other important things as well.
That's the interesting thing. How much the housing crisis is affecting top to bottom. It's affecting the ability of the university to recruit full professors. It's affecting the ability of tech companies to recruit hot young talent. It's affecting the ability of hotels to find housekeeping and front desk staff. I'm hearing it absolutely top to bottom from employers. It's such an obstacle to recruitment and retention.
So you said there are little things the city can do, and I'm sure you're looking to other cities with similar problems, like San Francisco, where it's even more dire, and it's having a
Well, they've
ripple
got
effect.
the Google Facebook factor at
Yeah,
work.
they do, and so do we to some degree.
Yeah.
So if there were a few things that, if there was unanimity about planning or affordable housing rates that you would be charging developers, or what kind of units you wanted, what are some of those tools at the city council's disposal that actually might move some of the dial on at least creating more or protecting existing? Those are two different
Yeah,
things.
there's policy and then there's financial contributions. And I can think of a lot. We are looking at some rezonings in the city. We're looking at our downtown recovery plan. That's what we called it after the earthquake. That was 25 years ago, so it's time to look at it again. And particularly in the south of Cathcart area and the Front Street area, a lot of those properties are older, underutilized, and there's a lot of potential there for new construction. I think we're all interested in mixed use, some combination of ground floor, commercial apartments above. Providing adequate parking, to my mind, that's a really critical part of success. And picking up significantly more affordable by design units there, that is smaller units. They may not be designated affordable, but they would certainly not be large single-family homes. So I think we see the need for more what you might call workforce housing. And zoning, I think, is a potential for that. There also, I've been very interested in the effect of vacation rentals on our housing stock. I led a charge last year to protect our accessory dwelling units from being used as vacation rentals. That, to me, made no sense. I don't know if you followed that, but the city of Santa Cruz has been a leader in providing for accessory dwelling units in single-family neighborhoods. We have a provision that the main unit has to be occupied by the owner, so it can't be just be a double rental duplex. And we found that some of the accessory dwelling units were actually being used for vacation rentals, which was never the intention. They were permitted for accessory
Actual
dwelling.
residence. Right. I mean, it also begs the question, would you want someone partying down in your backyard if you had a granny unit and, you know, they're on vacation, they want to have fun.
Well,
so
even if they're just visiting for the weekend, that was not the intention of accessory
it
dwelling
took it out of the
units.
rental market is what it did. So,
So
that,
we
yeah.
protected the ADUs, but I think we will be coming back in the very near future to look at the whole vacation rental, short-term rental issue, because we just heard within the last couple of months of 2 apartment buildings that were sold, apartment complexes sold to be converted to ADUs, to Airbnb.
I've heard another story on the radio about this, that
Yeah.
now people like could come into town for 2 days and, you know, have all the amenities of home, but really it's like a hotel.
Yeah. So,
So they would have to pay the hotel tax, right?
but that's one thing, and we have gone after and we've played catch up with some other places, gone after the hotel tax from Airbnb. It's a much more informal structure, and Airbnb has a powerful lobbying, legislative, legal litigation arm behind it. But we have, I think, done a pretty good job this past year in collecting the TOT from Airbnb. But the other issues is taking housing units off the market. And when we jump through so many hoops, oh wow, we just created 11 new multifamily housing units. Great. Well, if 11 go off for vacation rentals, you have a net gain of 0. So it's so hard to provide the housing here. I think that needs a serious look. And I don't personally have a fixed answer. I know the county took one approach to its vacation rentals. Vacation rentals are a part of our economy, and they've been around for a long time. But the trend is accelerating. And given the pressure on our community, I think it needs some focus.
Good point, good point. So let's talk about some other issues that you kind of touched on and alluded to, but I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about, and that is transit. We've had big cuts to our transit lately, and you know, it's not what it was in terms of routes. Is there some discussion about how to get it back to its glory days, or at least further back toward where there were more routes for people, better use, more convenience? I don't know. More usage of buses so that people get out of their cars.
Well, I don't serve on the Metro Board, and as you know, but I just state for the audience, the Metro Transit System has its own governing board, and it's comprised of representatives from the different jurisdictions and some public members, and that's the decision-making body. So that's the group that has to look at the budget, make the decisions, and I know they're looking at the possibility of a new transit center in partnership with the city, perhaps. I think they want to get the most transit for the buck that they've got, and I believe that they're prepared to be more creative in maybe not having a hub, maybe seeing how the routes can interrelate. But because I'm not on that board, I'm not part of those decisions. But I think it is a time for looking at things afresh. The budget is probably not going to increase wildly in the near future, and so we have to just make the best use of the money.
Okay, fair enough.
And I should say also, as I'm sure you know, Measure D will allocate some of that revenue to support the metro system.
Absolutely. So there was a story that has come up in several other conversations with city council members, and that is the Beach Flats Garden. It was there for 26 years, and there was some struggle to keep it there as a garden. Is there new developments there that, and have you taken kind of a position on what the city should do in the future about that piece of land?
Well, we made a unanimous decision, which I support, that we were committed to finding a permanent location for the Beach Flats Garden. In my mind, it's not necessarily its current location, but we're very committed to that. We've given ourselves several years to do that, and I think that will be certainly a focus for the new council, whoever is on it. That commitment has to be honored.
Right, so promises other people make, new people have to honor.
Well, that's the interesting thing,
Yeah.
which you've alluded to. So many of our decisions take years of study, negotiation. We agree on this step and we move to the next step, and it's in phases. And it does assume some degree of continuity, and if there's a dramatic change in the council, that flow can be interrupted. And in the best of circumstances, there's a learning curve. So I don't see any change in the commitment to find a permanent home for Beach Flats Garden.
That's good to know, I'm sure, for the people listening who worked hard on that issue. So another issue that's come up a lot has been sort of the right level of funding and commitment on the part of the budget toward the police and what kinds of equipment they should have versus not have. The Bearcat was kind of a contentious issue, that grant. What are the kinds of dialogues you hope to have on the council going forward that might illuminate what is next for the police force and the relationship with the city?
Well, I think it's fair to say that the council overall has a high degree of confidence in our police force. We have a strong commitment to community-based policing. We are very committed to a very high level of training for our police in all aspects, in dealing with mentally ill, in dealing with homeless, in hostage negotiation. So our training far exceeds the national standards. But that's not enough. And we will be putting on this upcoming agenda, which will be old news by the time this airs, but Cynthia Chase, Micah, and I will be putting an agenda item to ask the chief to report to the city council as a whole on President Obama's recommendations for 21st century policing. We do a huge amount of that already. But I think the public's not aware of it, and that will give us a chance as a council to discuss where are we now, where do we excel, where can we improve, and the commitment is to do that. We put a lot of effort currently into prevention and particularly working with young people. We share with the schools a school resource officer, and we have a youth program, the Pride program, which is particularly geared to kind of middle school aged at-risk kids from becoming involved in gangs. These have been really very successful. So I think there's a lot we do do well, and the equipment is a part of that, but I think it's only a part of it.
So to follow on with that just a little bit more, I had heard once, and I don't know if you just hear rumors, or little shards of
Rumors?
information sometimes, and you wonder, is it true? There was some murmuring that maybe other cities were letting their prisoners out of jail and they came here, or they were actually literally dropping them off here and they became criminals here. Have you ever heard that happening, and is that?
Well, there are plenty of rumors, and there have been for decades. I can just tell you that. There have been a couple of documented instances, and that's really regrettable. Our feeling is we're willing to do our share, but we don't feel we need to shoulder Northern
We
California.
don't need to be the destination for people
Right, so,
to go commit the second crime.
but I would say that's not documented in great numbers.
So
Let's just
your
leave it
ears
at
are-
that.
Your ears are open for future
Yeah,
possibilities.
that's been around for a long time.
The arena is a big possible future expenditure that the city council may be voting on, I guess, or maybe already has, but there's a...
No, what we've done
Okay.
now is to invest in a study of possible locations, and it's kind of been, and the size and type of programming that might happen at a permanent arena. As I'm sure you know, what we call the temporary arena has been very successful as a venue for the Warriors. The Warriors have really been adopted by Santa Cruz very enthusiastically. And we are looking at the possibility of a permanent arena that could be some kind of a multi-use, multi-sport venue. So we have kind of an idea on what general capacity that should have. We're looking at a couple of locations that will come back for study. We don't have the final form of that yet. But that would not be built at city expense. I don't want to give that impression. We had a partnership with some offsets and also some loans for the current one. But we are, I think I can say for the whole council, not interested in subsidizing a private enterprise.
That's quite costly. Most cities that invest have not
Regret it.
necessarily found it
Regret
to
it.
be a moneymaker.
And we didn't have to do it on the current one, and I think have no intention. What has been interesting, though, with the current Warriors Arena is how much it did to invigorate that lower Pacific Avenue and to reinvigorate downtown on weeknights when there was an event. That effect was definitely felt.
That's an interesting part of downtown Santa Cruz, because at night, a lot of people I know who try to travel that route don't want to and feel it's unsafe. And there's some planned development housing, something that's going in there that might change that. What's the plan for that part of Pacific?
I mentioned the revisiting of the downtown recovery plan, and the whole area from Laurel Street on up through Metro is very much in play in terms of future uses. There have been some ownership changes, some discussion of different types of development. But in any event, what we see is a combination of mixed use, commercial, residential, adequate parking, that I think would just be an it would not only help our housing issues, but it would give life to that part of Pacific Avenue. That would be a real plus. And I know for decades, really, there's been an interest in genuinely connecting our downtown with our beach. And that's happened in many ways. We actually renamed the lower part down by the Sanctuary Exploration Center Pacific Avenue. It used to be Washington. You thought, well, where does Pacific go?
Right.
Renaming that, but also the trolley, and there's some new housing under construction right where the street takes a bend there. So I think when you look longer term, whether it's through zoning or just new capital coming in investment, there's a huge amount of potential to bring new life to that stretch and also connect our beach and our downtown.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, in the 5 minutes we have left,
Oh.
or less, there are a lot of issues. Many, I think all the people I've interviewed so far were in support of the water committee that met and made recommendations, which I remarked was rather astounding because people don't generally agree on water issues.
Yes.
But they did. So which parts would be implemented first, and what will be?
Well, the water committee recommendations were very clear on that. They assume an ongoing and increasing commitment to conservation. That's an assumption. That's not even phase one. That's happening.
Right.
Phase one was to explore the opportunity for aquifer recharge through a variety of means and to see if we bank water in the aquifer, can we then pull it back out in terms of drought? And that's not a one-year study, that's several years. And I believe they gave us 5 years. This was the plan that was proposed by the advisory committee and adopted by council. And that's happening right now. It's extremely expensive just to study and test. But we'll see, if we recharge the aquifers, can we pull water out in the event
We'll
of...
know in 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
good.
that's the horizon.
That's what we
But
hope,
we
yeah.
can't go on for 20 years
No.
exploring that question.
No.
And the other thing that the Water Supply Advisory Committee was very clear on and unanimous, we do need to find another supply. It's either going to be from our recharge aquifers or an additional source. Now, if after 5 years that's not panning out the way we hope, then we do have to look for another source, another supply.
Yeah.
And the Water Supply Advisory Committee was conservation and Phase A and Phase B. So I don't think you can cherry pick those.
Yeah, no, it sounds like they're integral. Well, in the minute or two we have left, I wonder if you could summarize some of the main themes. You know, this is you said your sixth time running. What's different this time for you? What do you want people to know about you that maybe they don't know about what a sixth term might look like for you?
Well, I would say one of the things I bring is experience, obviously. And I bring an understanding that the community evolves, the issues change. I think what I do bring is a really good network of relationships, of trust in a wide variety of sectors: environment, social services, public safety, all of these. And that's reflected in my endorsements. And I am very eager to work with whatever council gets presented. There's 4 seats. There's going to be a lot of new people. So I understand that our critical issues now that are presenting to us are different than the ones we had 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And I intend to be forward-looking and being part of a great team.
Well, it's been great talking with you, and maybe we'll see you again in 4 years. You never know how many
no.
terms. This is your last term.
I would, in any event, be termed out after this one, so
All right.
we'll call it a sunset.
We might be. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah.
I've interviewed you a lot, and it's great to see you hung in there all these years. And
Well, I don't consider it hanging in there.
it's not the easy job most
No, but,
people would think it is.
It's definitely rewarding when we do good things.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. That's why you're running again. Well, thank you, Cynthia
Yeah.
Mathews, Mayor of Santa Cruz, for being here with us
Thank
today.
you.
And thank you for watching.